Hey, Tom.
Good to be with you, Renee.
So this is the first trip by a sitting prime minister in Canada to visit Qatar. How significant is that?
Very important because, of course, as we understand, these Gulf states are cash rich. And I like the way Annie Bergeron-Oliver set it up. She's saying, look, they're trying to find countries where they can invest and their money won't disappear and you can have an honest court system and the rule of law and so forth. So that's one of the advantages of being a democracy. Now, not all the countries that we work with or trade with are democracies. We just got a good taste of that with the visit to China. But the overall approach here that Carney has been taking for the past, 10 months or so since he became prime minister is essentially, we've got to find new partners. We've got to make deals around the world. We've got to sell Canada's best assets, and that includes selling us as a safe place to invest.
Now, Carney came back from China or came from China with a deal that many weren't thinking would happen as quickly as it did. Does that tell you that
the United States is panicking, and it's not subtle anymore? We do not need Canada. That wasn't Donald Trump speaking at a rally. That was the U.S. Ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra, saying it plainly on radio without hesitation. He said it the same week Canada locked in historic deals with China, and on the very day Mark Carney landed in Qatar to line up the next phase. Wasn't confidence, it was panic showing through. Timing matters here. Canada had just concluded a blockbuster reset with China. EV tariffs slashed, canola tariffs crushed, visa-free travel announced, and Chinese EV manufacturing put on track inside Canada. That alone rattled Washington. Carney didn't pause to celebrate. He didn't slow down. He boarded a plane and headed to Qatar, one of the world's most powerful capital hubs, to pursue something even more unsettling for the USD: massive investment for Canadian infrastructure, energy,
be some sort of deal coming in Qatar?
Absolutely. I mean, they have massive sovereign wealth funds. And, there are things that we're looking to build here. That's the whole pitch of the Carney era. He's saying, look, we're going to get back to building huge projects like we used to be able to do, and they're going to provide the wealth for the future. So I think, yes, that there could very well be that. He does the same thing, though, when he goes to London, which is, of course, one of the world's most important financial capitals. You've got to be able to talk to those markets. And I would dare say, Renee, that one of the advantages of Mark Carney is that he's Mark Carney. When he walks into a room, he doesn't have to show the color of his socks. Everybody knows this guy. Everybody knows him from when he was, of course, governor of the Bank of Canada, but they really know him from when he was the governor of the Bank of England. And he helped do everything to keep that country afloat.
And long-term growth. That's when Hoekstra's tone snapped. Asked a simple question. Does the U.S. need Canada? He didn't hedge or qualify. He said no. That line wasn't strength. It was defensive. Ambassadors don't say that unless they feel the ground shifting. Hoekstra wasn't reacting to theory. He was reacting to momentum. Canada wasn't asking permission anymore. And that's what unnerved him. What most coverage is missing is this: the comment wasn't really about trade. It was about control. For years, Washington's leverage rested on the assumption that Canada had nowhere else to go. China shattered that assumption. Qatar threatens to finish the job. China is about trade access. Qatar is about capital power. And that distinction changes everything. Qatar isn't just another stop on an itinerary. It's one of the world's most influential investment centers, with sovereign wealth measured in the hundreds of billions and a time horizon measured in decades, not election cycles. When Carney lands there, he's not negotiating quotas. He's pitching Canada as a safe, stable destination for global money, infrastructure, energy, transportation, and strategic industries. This is the kind of investment that locks in growth for generations, and it doesn't follow chaos. That's why this trip matters in a way even China didn't. Once capital chooses a country, it doesn't leave quietly.
As they went through the absolute unpredictable chaos of Brexit, leaving the European Union. So Carney is one of Canada's great natural resources right now. And of course, he's going to be off to Davos, Switzerland. And I love the fact that he's going there absolutely, visor up, walking into the room, going to be giving some important talks there. And why is that important? Well, because some very right-wing conservatives have come up with a conspiracy theory about the World Economic Forum and world domination and who's in charge. And it's a bit wacky. But Carney is, of course, very unashamed and unabashed about walking into those rooms, knowing that he's got good contacts with everybody in those rooms, because that's what's actually going to help Canada, not some vague conspiracy theory about the World Economic Forum.
How do you think Carney's approach in Qatar may differ?
Well, I think that what he's doing is he's basically selling himself, selling Canada, and selling the ability to attract investment for big projects that he's already thinking of. We do have some of them already on the table, but you can imagine how important it would be for them to be able to say, okay, what if we invest in this high-speed railway?
China showed Canada had options. Qatar shows Canada has backing. Trade partners can rotate. Capital alliances tend to stick. Gulf investors start viewing Canada as a preferred destination. It sends a clear signal to global markets. Canada is no longer operating under an American economic shadow. Washington understands exactly what that means. Once capital flows diversify, pressure stops working, tariff threats lose impact. Trade bullying loses teeth. Diplomatic tantrums stop moving markets. That's why Hoekstra's comment mattered. It wasn't defiance, it was anxiety. A Canada that is funded, diversified, globally connected is a Canada that can't be coerced. Here's the irony Washington doesn't want to face. The U.S. didn't lose Canada because Canada changed. It lost Canada because Trump made the relationship unreliable. Carney didn't set out to sideline the United States. He responded to being sidelined. And when American officials say, "We don't need Canada," what they're really admitting is that they no longer get to dictate Canada's choices. And that loss is permanent. Happens next won't arrive in one headline. It will show up in investment flows, in factories being planned, in capital choosing Canada over chaos. Puts Canada on a path that's hard to reverse. The real question now isn't whether Carney can keep building momentum. It's how Washington responds to a Canada that is no longer waiting to be told what it's allowed to do. If you want clear, nonsense analysis as Canada rewires its global position in real time, subscribe to Capital Insight and tell me this: is Washington losing Canada because it doesn't need us, or because it pushed us away?